Speaking of Mayor Eric Garcetti, I'm really honored to introduce a surprise guest. He wasn't able to confirm due to his civic duty, jury duty. He was waiting to hear whether he was going to serve, but he didn't get called today, so he's able to join us. The former U.S. ambassador, always ambassador to India. He continues his work on an ambassadorial level for C40 Global Cities as global ambassador for climate diplomacy. Was the 42nd mayor of Los Angeles, co-founder for Accelerator for America, co-founder for Climate Mayors, was chair of C40. Ladies and gentlemen, the man that won the Olympics for Los Angeles, Eric Garcetti.
Speaking from here, okay, gotcha. Awesome. Hey everyone, how's it going? It's nice to be back in Los Angeles, and thank you, Matt, for the warm welcome. I had 2 months off between mayor and ambassador, and I actually decamped over to Lacey and was really proud to work at a place that I had helped found when I was city council president with Mayor Villaraigosa, fund and expand, and then lose my first chief sustainability officer to go run the place. And I'm so blown away by the not only material work that you're doing, but also the convening power that Lacey has. So congratulations, not just in Los Angeles, but nationally what Lacey is doing, and internationally. We were just down in Rio a few weeks ago, for COP30, and I went back to Belém just 2 weeks ago for the COP conference itself. And Lacey really is a huge presence, and your presence here today underscores that even more. Second, welcome to this amazing stadium. I also had the privilege of working on this stadium, and thank you to LAFC for believing in this place, and the city worked very closely to build what is, how many people have never been to a sporting event here? Raise your hand if you haven't. Okay, so all of you have to come either to Angel City or LAFC. This is probably one of the best sports venues anywhere in the world, and one of the few or the first places where you can actually, if you're lucky enough and know the right person, get a seat on the pitch itself, which is amazing. And this is going to be during the Olympics where we have flag football and lacrosse. So this will become kind of christened as part of the holy ground that this entire exposition park already is. And this park, for a moment, if you just want to situate yourself, my father actually grew up 2 blocks away from here, got a scholarship to go to USC, the first in his family, the son of Mexican immigrants, and used to come here, he said, to go to the Coliseum, which was, of course, built just before the 1932 Olympics. It's the only stadium in the world that's hosted 2 Olympic opening ceremonies, and will, of course, be the first one to do it 3 times in just a little bit over 2.5 years from now. And so here in this park, where you have the African-American, California African-American Art Museum, you've got our Natural History Museum, where the only full stack of a space shuttle with the not only main rocket, but the booster rockets is being put up right now at the California Science Center. And then you see the Coliseum, this facility. And if you haven't noticed, on the other end, we also won another big prize, which was the Lucas Art Museum, Museum of Narrative Art, which is an extraordinary gift, the largest single gift of any American family as an art institution to any place in America in our history. And I took a sneak preview of it a couple weeks ago with the Lucases, and it is going to be amazing. So imagine 2.5 years from now coming back here to maybe see lacrosse or flag football for the first time, one of the 5 sports we're putting in the games for the first time. Well, actually, baseball is returning, so it's not the first time. But also to see and to feel what this city will be, and also what this nation will be then. And I know it's a tough moment for a lot of people thinking through, well, where are we? In some ways, the city's going through an identity crisis, the state's going through a moment of transition, and the country certainly is at a moment where we've never felt as divided, sometimes as pessimistic. But like Mary, I'm an optimist, and I know that these things come in cycles. Maybe it's my time in India that I realize not all of history is linear, but sometimes it's circular. And trust me, this moment that is coming is like a fixed point on the horizon that will unite, excite, and bring power that you don't even imagine right now. And the reason I say that is I bore witness to that when I was 13 years old, and the Olympics came here in 1984. Now most of you are like, oh my God, he sounds old. A few of you are saying, oh, he sounds young, but that's my age. I was 13 years old in 1984, and my parents took me to the Coliseum, and I remember seeing Carl Lewis win one of his 4 golds, and seeing the closing ceremonies, which was extraordinary. I saw my city's kind of civic purpose rebooted. I saw the Olympics reimagined. And I saw this moment where LA really felt like the center of the universe. So when I became mayor, it was the first letter that I wrote. I wrote to the US Olympic Committee saying we wanted to host the Olympics. And LA has actually bid for the Olympics more times than any city in the world. We actually basically bid every single Olympics. Like after 28, we'll say we're here for 32, even though it's going to Australia. We have so many times said we are eager, and we've actually never won a competitive games, even though this will be our third time hosting it. And I'll get back to that in a second. But we sent the letter off to the US Olympic Committee. I asked my friend Casey Wasserman if he'd come and chair the effort. We went up to Northern California against Washington and San Francisco and Boston and a handful of other cities, made our pitch, and I talked about my daughter Maya, who I calculated in 2024, which is what we were bidding for, would be 13 years old when the Olympics came to town, and what it would mean for her and her generation the way it was for my generation. And at the end of our speeches and kind of heartfelt like presentation, they literally gave us a standing ovation. They said it was the best presentation they had ever heard for an Olympic bid, just for the American nomination. And then they proceeded to give it to Boston. So we were like, okay, that was fun. But Casey said, hold on, Boston doesn't seem as logical. Because part of our pitch from the very beginning was LA not only can do this, but we can present a new model that is truly a sustainable games. Every game says it's going to be the greenest games ever, but we didn't want that to be like dressing on just like our recycling policies or how we were going to construct things. We were going to show a model that was both economically, because more and more cities were saying, why should we bid for the games? It's so expensive, and we've got higher priorities than a 2.5-week sporting event. And now with the Paralympic Games, which we're so excited, here in the city where the first wheelchair marathon was originated to have our first Paralympics, we said, most places are pretty logical not financially doing the games, but also ecologically, the games can be this kind of 2.5-week destructive thing that comes in. All the construction for 2 years ahead of time leads to empty venues that aren't used just a year or two later. Whereas Los Angeles could literally do the Olympics probably 2.5 weeks from now. If we absolutely had to, we actually have the facilities already built. We've got the athletes who are already training here. We've got almost every single thing already here. And our pitch was we could do that. But meanwhile, it was Boston, and Boston very logically decided to drop out a week before we had to go down to Rio to compete in the first kind of presentation with the 4 other cities around the world that were bidding. So we went down to Rio because they kind of hat in hand or tail between their legs came to us and said, you guys think you still might want to represent the US? We said, sure, no problem. Put together our presentation, and off to the races we were. Now, long story short is we won the games, I think, precisely because we pitched Los Angeles on its values, which is important to the discussion here today, and also on our ability to take this one thing. I mean, there's so little that unites us in the world today. But sports still is, domestically and certainly internationally, one of those few things that really breaks down all of the political and demographic and geographic barriers in the world. I was just down, as I mentioned, in the Amazon, and you see people wearing LA Dodgers caps because it is the best baseball team in the world. When you see the way that LA has a guy like Shohei Ohtani ignite Japan about an LA-based team. People here root for Premier League teams in Britain or other ones around Europe. We've got the second most streaming minutes of cricket in the United States of America, having lived in India, where I was very happy, perfect timing to announce that we're putting cricket in the games in India as the IOC met there. And an Indian friend said, you can go home now. That's the only thing we really wanted. You see how these things break down barriers and unite people. And in our pitch, we said LA is a place of freedom, a place of reinvention, a place of health, and a place of diversity. It's a place that's everyone's second home. You can come from anywhere in the world and find your people. You can find your food. You can find your language, your religion. All of them are here. But also you can collide with cultures you've never, ever experienced. And they're all in the same block. As a city council member, I used to walk every weekend, not campaigning, between elections, and just knock on doors and talk to people. And we'd be in one apartment complex in East Hollywood, and it would be an Armenian family next to a Guatemalan family, next to a Congolese family, next to a Thai family. And that's just LA. Go to one of our mini malls, you see that, right? And in some ways, at this moment, when we're seeing some people try to distill identity, purify identity, we stand in saying the strongest and smartest and most robust moments of not only belonging, but putting progress forward is when we all feel that we belong and when we're all at home together. So let me give you some advice. That's kind of the past piece. I could walk you through how we won, how we convinced the Olympic Committee to give 2 Olympics at the same time, why the other ones dropped out, but I won't bore you. You can do that over a drink sometime. Eric Garcetti at Gmail. Anyway, but the present is what I want to talk a moment about, and then the future. So at the present, I think a lot of people feel a little bit lost. They wonder, will this games be manipulated? Will this be an LA value games? Will it be a White House values games? Will it be something that people use? And as the first recipient of the FIFA Peace Prize, I just wanted to say that, too soon? That there's a lot of craziness out there in the world, but you have the power to define what that future looks like. And don't cede the power you have before you exercise it. Nobody holds power over these games. I know some people, even the most extreme, were like, let's not even have the games. Oh, well, will that change one thing on our fight against homelessness? Will that help more immigrants if we don't have the games? Will we have, by losing a platform to show the world who we are and to unite the world, will we push progress forward, or will we lose the opportunity? Will we give away the power that we have? And I would offer we would give it away. And this is a moment for us to do the opposite, to hold it and to show when we have goals on sustainability, when we have goals on uniting people and making them belong, that will speak for itself so powerfully as it has in the past. In fact, I was over at SCAG last week, where we put out our annual economic report for the counties of Southern California, and I described the year. I said the Dodgers won the World Series. People were worried about inflation and a recession. We're looking at wars around the world, partisanship that we've never experienced before, went through a couple other things. That was 1981. Same point that we are at now. Morale was low. The economy didn't feel very strong. People thought we would never come together as Americans. What 1984 did, just 2.5 years later, so put yourself in that. Let's put this at the nadir right now, and let's rise up from that, picturing what we want to see. So to move to the future, my advice is pretty simple. Don't wait, don't ask for permission, and like this gathering, make 2028 what you dream of, and what you want to see, and what you want to create. Because whether it's in the private sector, or among community groups, whether it's inside government, there's no secret locker. Trust me, I lived there for 21.5 years at City Hall, full of money that the Olympics has given us, and if you're just a little bit more persistent, you're gonna get a piece of it. The Olympics are independent from the government side. They need to run a successful business operation because we're the only country in the world that doesn't subsidize sports and certainly doesn't give a single cent to Olympics. So we have to make sure that it isn't in debt, because then the city of LA holds the bag on that. And I'm confident that we won't. But there's not a lot of excess money that is just, I've community groups and cities and others who come up all the time saying, well, when's LA 28 going to give us something? They're not, nor should they. But if you look at the power we have on this stage and in this room and around, the power for us to decide cultural programs, to decide sports and youth engagement, to look at what we're going to do to show what sustainability is about and climate action means, that is in your hands. So don't wait for permission. So first, accelerate. That's the 4 8s, I'm going to call it. Accelerate the work that you do. Secondly, innovate. When the Rocket Man landed in the opening ceremonies here in Los Angeles, and people didn't believe that somebody could put a jetpack on your back and actually fly, and we showed that to happen. It was a symbol not only of something cool for an opening ceremonies, it was that this was the center, and always has been the center, of aerospace and space and flight. Figure out the things that we do better than anyone else in the world and highlight them. Maybe it's going to be electric air taxis. Maybe it's going to be the public transit system that we're building out. Maybe it's going to be the ways that we can use AI on our grid. You have been talking about that all day long, but it's our moment to show the world, to inspire the world, and through innovation, so accelerate and then innovate, to show off who we are and what the world is going to become. Third, collaborate. Find a city, find a country, find a team, find a company, find a community group, find somebody on your left or right at the table today, and collaborate with them to show these partnerships that we saw in 1984. You know, we defined in our pitch to the Olympics that LA has always been a games changer, in plural, not game changer, games changer. In 32, we won because nobody else wanted it, and it was the Depression, and they didn't even know where LA was, and they said, that town next to Hollywood, give it to them. They had bid 4 years earlier. We had bid and lost, and so we got those games. And we had the first Olympic Village in South LA. We had the first podium. The Olympic podium was invented right here. The first photo finish, some of the first women's events ever, first Olympics that China ever competed in. That was 1932. In 1984, when there was boycotts and the Cold War, and 1976 in Montreal, nobody wanted to bid for the Olympics, so again, no competition. We were given the Olympics, but we said we can't guarantee them financially, the city, and the Olympics said, forget it. And we played kind of a game of chicken until they said, fine, take it, good luck, and you can have this committee do it. We showed a whole new model of sponsorship and bring the private sector in that saved not only the US Olympic Committee, which was bankrupt, but gave us $350 million of profit, which we've put into more than $350 million of programming for kids in low-income neighborhoods and to make sure there's access to sports and more since then. And in 2028, how will we be that games changer? How will you all be that games changer? If in 32 we took 10th Street, because it was the 10th Olympiad, and turned it into Olympic Boulevard, and in 1984 we said, hey, I got a good idea. Why don't we make that a one-way street and traffic flowed? What will we do with Olympic in 2028? Maybe it'll be a giant ciclovia the entire time. If we put up the podium in 1932 for the first time, in 1984 we had Hollywood come to the Coliseum and show off what we could do. What do you want to see in the opening and closing ceremonies that show where we'll have teams like a refugee team that speaks so powerfully against the forces that are anti-immigrant and anti-refugee and anti-humanitarian, what sports can do and who we are. And I think if you look back at this moment, and by the way, don't worry, about 2 years out, everybody complains about the Olympics. In every city the Olympics happens. It's gonna fail. Why are we doing this? There's no way this can succeed. So it's natural for everybody to be at the point that they're at now. But the smart ones are getting ready with their plans. And think about the Paralympics, which we've never had in Los Angeles, to make this the most accessible city, to link that together with sustainability, to look at the ways that we can build out the future that we want in Los Angeles. Let us all look back. So accelerate, innovate, collaborate, and last of all, communicate. And thank you for Lacey for bringing this together so we can communicate what we're doing. And reach for the stars. We won the gold medal by winning the Olympics for Los Angeles. What is your gold medal going to be? What are you going to look back and say, this was something I thought wasn't possible? But really the reason we love the Olympics is two reasons. One, it's the whole world together in a village. We never get the chance to do that, except every 4 years. And secondly, it tests the limits of what human beings can do, physically. That's why it inspires us. But take that as a metaphor to press the limits of what you can do. Not necessarily what your bodies can do, but what your planning can do, what your funding can do, what your imagination can do. And then look back and know not only were we a games changer once again, but maybe 2028 helped reset the world back on track so that we can bring that world that we dream of when we close our eyes each night. Thank you all so much, and good luck.